Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and in this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians continued attacking each other with missiles and drones. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine this morning reported that during the previous night the Russians launched 147 drones and missiles altogether. The Ukrainians are saying that just 103 drones they managed to bring down. At the same time, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation stated that the Ukrainians launched 75 drones, and the Ukrainians launched them in the direction of the southern regions of Russia. Most of the drones were brought down by Russians in the area of the Black Sea and around the Krasnodar Krai. So as you can see, both the Russians and the Ukrainians continue attacking each other. I would like to remind you that as for the southern region of Russia, as for the city of Krasnodar, Novorossiysk, there is, let's say, export infrastructure of the Russian Federation that Russia used to export oil, to export LNG. So that is why the Ukrainians are trying to attack this area as much as possible, trying to destroy this infrastructure and, let's say, to make a very bad situation for the Russians and economy. So all these attacks on energy infrastructure continue, and the most important thing that when talking about the Russian side, we see that the Russians between these attacks are able to repair, let's say, facilities, to repair infrastructure, and to return to normal schedules. But as for Ukrainian side, we see that the Ukrainians are not able to restore and to repair the infrastructure between the strikes. For example, this article was published about the situation in the city of Kiev, and the sources are saying that in Kiev 710,000 consumers remain without power. Some homes may not have hit this heating season, nor even the next. The figure of 700,000 was announced by Ukraine Energy Minister Shmyhal. Heat supply problems in Kyiv, Stroyechno and Dniprovsky district are enormous, and the figure of around 1,000 homes without heat, water and electricity, as reported by Klitschko, is approximate. People will have to think about where to move. Apparently, some homes in Kyiv will be without heat, not this heating season, nor even the next, he added. So the situation is critical, and I would like to remind you that today is more or less comfortable weather through the territory of Ukraine. So this is probably the only day when the weather is okay, when the weather is normal, when the special services can work and can stabilize the situation. But according to media, according to the current situation, tomorrow the weather will worsen, much worsen, and we will see once again frost through the entire territory of Ukraine, which means that most likely during these days the Russians will launch more attacks on the territory of Ukraine, trying to deal significant damage to Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The Ukrainian sources are saying that Russians may attack 2 times during the next 7 days, during this frost period of time. So this is the situation in the city of Kiev. Another important city is the city of Kryvyi Rog. According to information we have, people are blocking the highway and tram tracks due to the electricity situation. Residents say they are given electricity for 1-2 hours a day, and the schedules are not being followed. So this is a very important video, not about this situation with the highways and blocking of highways and so on. The most important idea and the most important thing of this video is that this process, the process of the city of Kryvyi Rog, started not yesterday. If we increase the numbers of updates since the beginning of this month, you'll see that the protests on the territory of the city of Kryvyi Rog started a long time ago. For example, this video was published on the January 18th, so almost but 10 days ago. 10 days ago, the population of the city of Kryvyi Rog began protests against power outages, against problems with electricity and so on. This video was published today, 28th of January, and for example, this video was published, this article was published on the 22nd of January. So we see that the protests on the territory of the city of Kryvyi Rog lasts for more than 10 days. So obviously something we haven't added to the map, so it seems that it's about a month. Soon we're going to be about 20 days or a month of the protests on the territory of the city of Kryvyi Rog, and this is probably a very bad piece of news for Ukrainian authorities, because it is always starts with a simple protest, and in the end we may see another coup d'etat or something like this. Another important city is the city of Odessa. During the previous 12 hours, lots of attacks and strikes with Iran drones were recorded. A massive attack is underway on Odessa. Explosions and gunfire are thundering. This article was published during the night between the 27th and the 28th of January. Dozens of Iran-attacked drones are striking Ukrainian targets in Odessa and the region. Thermal power plants are presumably being targeted. So this is the third city in Ukraine with huge problems with electricity, with energy supply. There is another city, the city of Kharkiv, but as for the previous night, we haven't received anything on this matter. The only thing we have is that Ukrainians between the 1 and 8 p.m. were attacking the city of Belgrade with drones, and the Russians were repelling this attack. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about these two icons that are located in the most southern part of the Kharkiv region. These icons are very important. So this is the video that was published by pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see video and photos of a burning train in Barvenkovo, Kharkiv Oblast. So the sources are saying, the pro-Ukrainian sources are saying, and the pro-Russian sources are saying that during the previous night, the Russians attacked a train that was moving from, let's say, mainland, from the city of Kharkiv most likely, in the direction of the Slaviansk-Liman front lines. So this train was destroyed. This is another video of the same train, but from another, let's say, angle. So the train was damaged, the train was stopped, and then the people were forced to evacuate from the train, and they began moving in the direction of Barvenkovo by their own. So this is a very important video, and the most important value of this video is not that the train was attacked, but the most important thing that this is not the first attack during the previous 24 hours along this railway. Once again, this is the railway we are talking about. So this railway goes from the mainland, from the cities of Dnipro, Zaporozhye, Kharkiv, Kiev, through the city of Lazovo, further in the eastern direction towards the Slaviansk-Kramatorsk direction. So towards the cities where the Ukrainians are trying to prepare the final battle for the rest of the Donetsk region, for the rest of Donbass. So that is why the Ukrainians these days are sending everything they have: weapons, armored vehicles, tanks, infantry. They send everything they can, everything they have in the direction of these two cities, with the purpose to not allow the Russians to take these cities under complete control. And of course, the Ukrainians are using all means they have for this redeployment process, including railway service. And so, as you can see, one train was attacked just during the previous night, and just yesterday we discussed another video, another episode that took place also along the same railways, and this episode took place a bit further to the west. We discussed this video, and here we can see at least 50 vehicles of the armored forces of Ukraine that the Ukrainians gathered at the same place. And when the Russians discovered this concentration of vehicles, the Russians destroyed them with Iskander missiles. These 3 Iskander strikes were recorded at this point. So if we increase the numbers of updates between 2 dates, we see that both of attacks took place along the only probably supply line that Ukrainians still have to supply and support their contingent on the territory of Slaviansk and Kramatorsk, which means that the Russians understand what the Ukrainians are doing right now and what the Ukrainians are going to do next. The situation here remains tense, and furthermore, according to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, during the previous 12 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions significantly in the city of Liman, which is located a bit further to the east from the settlement of Barvenkovo, and the distance between these two positions, between the place where the train was attacked and the city itself, is 50 kilometers, which means that there are very high chances that the reinforcement that Ukrainians were trying to redeploy with this train supposed to be transferred further in the eastern direction to the city of Liman itself. But so this is the situation. So let's talk about the changes. So this is the situation by the end of the 26th of January of 2026. This is the 27th, and this is the 28th. As you can see, the Russians are about to establish complete control over the territory to the north of the city of Liman, to the east of the city. So basically everything to the east and north is about to be taken by Russians, and right after this moment the Russians will be able to begin their major offensive operation with the purpose to establish complete control over the city of Liman. So this is going to be a very difficult battle both for Russians and for Ukrainians. And this is a vital battle because the city of Liman opens the Russians the way further in the southwestern direction towards the heart of the Donbas Arc operation, the city of Slaviansk. So this is the situation in this area. Lots of FPV drone attacks. Different mappers are adjusting their maps, showing additional progress on the ground in many areas. Lots of changes, as you can see, lots of icons, lots of FPV drone attacks, and lots of very interesting videos like this one. So for example, in this video we can see how Russians were securing and clearing the trenches of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area. So as you can see, the Russian soldier dropped a grenade or mine inside of this, let's say, stronghold, and then there was a very heavy explosion. Very difficult to say what exactly was happening there. Either the Ukrainians mined this stronghold so much so there were no chances for Russians to establish complete control over the territory, so that is why the Russians decided to blow this stronghold up, or there were Ukrainian soldiers that decided not to surrender and that decided to continue fighting. So lots of options for this, but some sources are saying that despite the fact that the Russians are advancing further in the western direction towards the villages of Riznikovka, Kaleniki, and Alexandrovka, there are still positions and there are still pockets of resistance behind, let's say, the forward and the edge forces of the armored force of the Russian Federation. Now let's talk about the Kupiansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. Once again, I would like to remind you that yesterday the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, the Chief of the General Staff, reported about complete control over the city of Kupiansk-Kozlovoy. And during the previous night, we received the report. According to neutral mappers, the Russians also improved their positions on the territory of the village of Petropavlovka. So these are the changes on the ground. This territory used to be under control of Russians, according to the Minister of Defense and the General Staff. Later we colored back this territory as a gray zone according to different mappers, and now we colored everything back again under control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. So it seems that indeed the battle for the river Oskol is coming to its logical end. In other important updates, according to neutral mappers, the Russians improved their position significantly in the most northeastern part of the Kharkiv region, around between the villages of Kolodezhny and Dvorechenskaya. It seems that the Russians began offensive in this direction with the purpose to cut the main supply lines, and the Russians most likely will try to intensify their offensive operation through the entire northeastern part of Kharkiv region. As for the Konstantinovka direction, very interesting videos were published. Once again, the Russians are still fighting for the outskirts of the settlement, for the villages of Ilinka and Berestok. The Ukrainians continue sending more and more forces and troops in the southern direction with the purpose to stabilize the situation. The Russians control the situation, and the Russians attacked positions of the armored forces of Ukraine with artillery. And today we received lots of videos from the settlement of Mykolopolya. So here we can see how Ukrainians through these positions were moving in the southern direction, trying to get as close as possible to positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. There are several options. The first option is that Ukrainians are trying to counterattack in this area in the southern direction with the purpose to restore the logistic of the city of Konstantinovka, of its southern part, not just through this kill zone corridor, but also through the western part to the city. Or the Russians are planning to begin offensive operation in this area with the purpose to tighten the news around the city of Konstantinovka from the southwest. So it seems that in this area we might see very heavy clashes in coming days. We are talking about this territory to the south of the settlement of Alexeyevo-Drushkovka. As for the Dobropolye direction, small changes were recorded during the previous 24 hours. According to neutral mappers, the Russians during the previous days managed to improve their positions along railways around the settlement of Rudinska. And according to these changes, it seems that Ukrainians that were located or that are still located in the territory of the settlement of Sohetska were caught in cauldron by the Russians. So the Russians managed to create a small cauldron in this area, and now the Russians will try to finish the battle for this territory. As for the Zaporozhye direction, additional changes on the ground were also recorded around the settlement of Zaliznychne. This information was provided by neutral mappers. The Russians continue offensive, trying to establish complete control over the southern part of Zaliznychne and trying to establish complete control over the gap between the southern part of Zaliznychne and the Russian positions around Dorozhnyanka. So we're talking about this territory. This is the main target for the Russians right now to improve logistics. And another important video was published today from the settlement of Ternovate. We will not watch this video, but the author of this video claims that a robotic system of the armored forces of Ukraine attacked positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation on the territory of the village of Ternovate, and as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians with this robotic system managed to capture 3 Russian soldiers. And during this video we can see how 3 Russian soldiers surrendered to this robotic system. So the most important is not that the robotic system captured the Russian soldiers. The most important thing is that the author of this video claims that this episode took place on the territory of the settlement of Ternovate itself, which means that according to this video, the Russians have answered the territory of the settlement, and currently there are very heavy clashes for the village, which means that in coming days the settlement might be captured by the Russians. And that's it for the short video. Military with Summary channel reminds to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.